All right, so Ray, I have a problem. Let's see here, a month ago, I started talking in inverse of just about everyone else that was putting out videos
Yes.
about where I saw prices actually going. This was the whole time where everyone was saying, okay, used car prices are spiking, tariffs are coming in, that's going to make prices go higher. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, hold on. We're entering into a seasonality kind of time where we see this every year. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of pressure on the upward side because of these other elements that are going on. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we're still going to operate really the same way that we usually do every single year. And I want to pull up this chart that you actually sent me earlier today that is going to show you that, okay, these are wholesale values. And
Yes.
you can see on the right-hand side of this chart, just about when I was getting blown up for saying that prices were going to go down from here was right at this peak.
Yeah.
And now prices have come down on the wholesale level. Now, obviously, a lot of people probably aren't experiencing that on the retail because retail always lags what wholesale is doing. But this is what I have experienced and seen in the auctions is that even if you throw out the kind of cars that I buy, that I look at and purchase, I'm seeing fewer dealers at the auction buying any of the cars. So that tells me that there's less appetite from the dealer level side of things. And that is going to show that prices from here, I believe, still on at least the used car side, are going to continue to get lower just because we have seasonality in the car market. We had tax time, we had spring selling season, and every year, no matter what's going on in the market, there's always a weakness that follows spring selling season.
Okay, you were right. That's the show. It was a pleasure being with you today.
Done. All right. Nice to see you guys.
You were right to a degree, and those others in this space who said prices are going up, wholesale prices are they were, and when you look more deeply into the black book data, you can see that for 10 or 11 weeks during a time when we would normally have been seeing, historically speaking, depreciation on the used car side of things, we were actually still seeing values rise. Now, were they still above where they should have been? And the answer to that is yes. Do we seem to have stabilized and are approaching normalization? I think perhaps one might be able to extrapolate that from the data. The one thing we do know is that the 1 and 2 year old used cars are not depreciating nearly as quickly as they historically have in the past, and so do we have two ends of the spectrum here? Yeah, I mean, the question is, are car prices going up or down? And jokingly, you and I both said before we started, yes, both. They're going up and down depending on what we're looking at. So, for were you more cognizant of what seasonality normally is than most? Perhaps you were. Yeah. How about that
Yeah.
for some flowers for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ray. But the thing about it is, usually when me and you were conversing and talking about this, we
Yes.
always got to the same point where we agreed with each other at the end of the conversation. It was a lot of other videos that I've seen, a lot of things, comments, a lot of even used car dealers that were thinking, okay, well, new car prices are going to go to the moon, so that means that used car prices are then going to follow that. But really, these new car manufacturers, I mean, you really haven't seen it yet. Yeah, we've had some companies come out and say that they're going to raise
Yeah.
prices, but we also haven't seen if that's going to follow through to the consumers. If they have Maverick sitting out there right now that they're still not selling at Ford, and then you raise the price by $2,000, they're going to get hit with a brick wall even harder than what they're experiencing right now. So in my opinion, yes, these manufacturers, they're going to try to raise the prices, but they're just going to have to put incentives on the back end of that anyway to lower them back down to where consumers will actually say yes. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's what I think is going to happen. But I mean, we have Subaru. They just came out, said they're going to raise prices too. So on the new end, maybe I'm wrong on that. And I want to pull up this Manheim chart in just a second, but go ahead and respond.
Well,
It
what
looks
I
like
was going to say is, I think we'll have a much clearer picture as to where the market is, both new and pre-owned wise, say come Tuesday or Wednesday. Once we get a report of what new car sales were, what the retail side of new car sales were for May, then we'll have some info. We know that new car sales were higher than expected in March and higher than expected again in April. My suspicion is that we're going to find that in May they didn't do that. That they're going to be lower than what was initially expected.
Do you feel like the pull forward in demand that we experienced from people getting ahead of tariffs is gone now? Because there's vehicles sitting on the ground right now that are not affected by tariffs.
Whatever people were going to be pulled forward have purchased, in my opinion. And I think we saw that in March and April. And I think what we're going to see in May is that either May was down a little bit from a year ago or about the same as a year ago. And if it's about the same as a year ago, that would indicate to me that there's actually a slowdown in new car sales because of the huge increase we saw in March and April. So, yes, I think the pull forward effect, that effect's over. I think the people that are left are people that either can or can't afford to buy a car, and those who can afford might be choosing not to at a slightly higher rate than what we'd seen in the past.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if it's going to be May that we're going to see it or if it's going to be June that we see it, but I feel like there's going to be a massive cliff where, okay, there's people that we're going to buy in May, they were going to buy in June. They are bought. Yeah, there would be no reason for them to wait and gamble on tariffs potentially making the prices go up.
Yeah.
What they did know is that the prices weren't going to go lower. So why would they gamble and wait? So we're probably not going to see it on Q2 that it's going to hit these manufacturers because there's still going to be some of that pull forward in demand that we've experienced in the last month and a half, where they can still have those sales on Q2. I think Q3 is going to be a nightmare for Ford, for GM, for Stellantis, for a lot of these OEMs.
I was going to say, I just think May will be an early indication of what to expect. And if May sales are flat, which I suspect they will be, that to me is a pretty strong indication as to where we're headed, because we came off 2 months that saw huge gains in new car sales in both March and April. And so typically when that happens, it continues. But if May sales are flat, that's a huge indication that we've passed the peak. And yeah, the proverbial poop's going to hit the fan for all these manufacturers, where sales could very well just come to almost a stop for a number of them, because we have been saying, I mean, even you and I have been saying it for years, the price of cars is too damn high. There is and has been and continues to be an affordability crisis, and the manufacturers haven't figured out how to address that. And with the advent of tariffs, that only exacerbates the affordability crisis. So it means that these manufacturers have to figure it out sooner rather than later, because sooner is about to hit that brick wall or go off the cliff, as you put it.
Yep. Let's go back to some used car stuff right here.
Okay.
So what I want to show you is this. This is the Manheim chart. This is very similar to what we just saw. It's just
Yeah.
stretched out a little bit more. This is the wholesale index for Manheim. What I want you, can you see my mouse when I'm moving it? Yeah,
I
yeah, you can.
can. I
So
I
you
think they
can,
call that a cursor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. So I wish I had the ability to draw like two lines to see your top end of this range and the
Yeah.
bottom end of this range. But if you can imagine it, so let's stretch this out and bring the bottom edge of this range, and it's going to come up to about right here.
Yeah.
Top edge of this range is going to come out, and it's going to come out to about right here. So what I am leading to with all this is I feel like you can erase all of this junk that happened over the last 4 years, and we're getting very close to where this trend line should be if you kept a regular market, if you kept regular inflation, if you kept just regular inflation of vehicle values. And I think we're still a little bit there. But for those of you thinking that vehicles are going to crash, if they're going to go back down to where they were in 2019, even if we didn't have all of this craziness that's happened, if it didn't happen, we would still be hovering around the same level of a used vehicle value index as of right now, just when you see regular inflation. Go ahead.
I think what I hear you saying is that if you take out the COVID years, where we are now is where we would have been had there never been COVID. Or
Maybe a hair lower on this chart, but very, very
yeah,
close.
yeah, or pretty darn close to where we are now. And
Yeah.
so the COVID years were just something that people get hung up on. But if you take them out, if they didn't exist, we would still have seen the increase in wholesale values for pre-owned cars. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. Obviously COVID was an anomaly, and it apparently something we see about every 100 years, whether it be the Spanish flu or COVID. Every 100 years, something's going to happen that's going to jack up the used car market. The good news is I ain't going to be around for it the next time.
Well, and here's the thing: everybody that was wanting the crash and looking for it, well, it already happened. You might have missed it, but that crash happened about right here, and it happened about right here. And
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much done crashing, barring any kind of major economic event. If we go into a recession, maybe we get another tick down. But I know, at least for this is talking about used vehicles. We're getting to a point now where maybe we're 20%, 25% off of where prices I would estimate they would be if we hadn't had all of this. So that's my opinion on it, and that's probably not a very popular opinion, but that's how I see this chart. That's how I read what the values are doing right now.
People are waiting for the crash, and when you look at it, from its highest point, used cars have probably given up about 45 to 50% of what that huge gain was. So that being the case, yeah, we've been through the crash, and it's just prices are still high because everything is still high. And at this point, it's just the natural flow of things, it seems. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had been asleep for the 4 years, during the COVID situation and all the nonsense that happened. But yeah, we're about where we should be. Maybe a tick high, but not a lot high, and people have to get used to it, adjust to it, or the manufacturers have to become more cognizant of the affordability issues for both new and pre-owned. And if they start building way more affordable new cars and those sell in quantities, then we'll see used car values continue to decline. But until that happens, Yeah, I think we're stuck in this scenario for a while.
And I can tell you right now, like we're buying like a 2005 Toyota Camry with like
Yeah,
180 something thousand miles or whatever. We're able to buy that like around I think $2,000 at this point, 2,000 to 2,500 bucks.
yeah,
But if you go back 18 months, then that same car 18 months ago would have been $4,000 at the auction. So we've experienced in my business now. Obviously, I'm at the lower end of the spectrum of cars that are going to be bought and sold, but I've seen the prices drop 50%
hmm
in wholesale, where we can actually go in now and buy a lot of stuff that we weren't able to buy 2 years ago. And it's crazy to see. Even in the last 3 months, what I've seen, where you go from tax time, and I talk about this all the time, where
yes,
seasonality in the car market means so much, especially to a small used car dealer like myself, because prices, even 3 months ago on that same Camry, if we're buying it for $2,000 now, that car was $3,500 at the auction just 3 months ago. These dealers, they go crazy. They're so reactionary that if they're selling cars, they're buying cars. If they're not selling cars, they're not buying cars. So that's what pushes a lot. And you can, I mean, this chart that I think this chart's great because you can literally see
yes,
the crash that happens at every tax time. I mean, here's the crash this year on the right
hmm
screen. We had a crash last year around the same time. We have a crash right here around the same
hmm
time. We have a crash right here around the same time. This is just what happens in the market, and we're getting back to seasonality of the car market, at least on the used car side of things. There's a lot of other elements that are going on the new side of the market, and Ray, you can probably speak to that a lot better than I can. But on the used side of things, it's starting to look to me more like a normal car market.
I think we're getting there. You know what would be interesting, and I'm not saying this so that you'll go ahead and do it because it's probably too damn much work, but it would be so interesting to compare um, what you were selling 2 years ago or 3 years ago to what you're selling today at the price points that you're selling them at. Um, because my suspicion is we
I
if
have that. I have that. Hold on.
oh
Keep
stop it.
keep talking. Keep
Okay,
talking. I have that.
because my
Yeah.
suspicion is when we go back in time, what we're going to see is people were paying, not only were you paying a lot more for the vehicles, but your customers had to pay more for those vehicles, or they had to pay, well, they were paying more for even older vehicles in order to be able to fit them into the price points that were comfortable for your type of customers, so that you can see you as someone on the front line who buys these cars week in and week out can see when the declines start to happen. And there is a certain seasonality. This last year, if I remember correctly, and when I say last year, I'm talking about the beginning of 2024. And maybe you recall this, used cars were still selling like hotcakes, and used car values were holding like crazy at the beginning of January in 2024. And then this year, when you would expect the car prices to start declining, they did the opposite and we're actually going. So there have been some not normal reactions, at least historically normal reactions to what we've seen in the used car market for, well, the last 4 years, but just in the last 18 months, it's been
So
crazy.
So I've got pulled up right here, and I have
Yeah.
to credit this to my wife because she's built all of our dealer software where we can actually go and track
Yeah.
everything that we've ever done. She gave me a snapshot just the other day. I had to pull it up in my email, and I
Yeah.
can't show it on the screen because her
Okay.
full name is right there on the top of it. But I can read to you guys what it says, and I have the average buying price of what we
Yeah.
paid for a car for since 2018 in a snapshot right here.
Okay.
So this year, our average buying price of what we actually have in the car, this is with repairs and everything, $2,213.
Okay.
This is actually what we have in the cars at the current time. So we have 75 cars right now at an average cost of $2,213.
Okay.
Last year at this same time, we had $2,500 in every car, so it's $300 more.
Yes.
The year before that, we had $2,700 in every car, so that's $500 difference just in 2 years.
Yes.
2022 was $2,600, and then 21 dropped all the way down to $1,800, and that was right when all the craziness started.
Yes.
Right? Back in 2020, it was $1,400 that we had in average. Isn't that crazy? Just so 5 years, it went from an average of us having $1,400 in every car. And these are the exact same cars, like even mileage, years, everything. These are the exact same cars that we bought. It went from $1,400 in 2020. In 3 years, it went up to $2,700. So a double.
It almost doubled.
It doubled. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's coming back down. And so yeah, you have the proof that we are seeing those corrections over the course of time. Now, will it ever get back to $1,400? I suspect not. But will we get closer? Will this time next year, if things normalize a little more, will your average cost be $2,000 a car as opposed to $2,200? More than likely, I would suspect. It's interesting. It really is. When you look at those numbers, it's enlightening because it just really shows how crazy the market got for too long of a time, honestly.
Yeah, and what I like seeing though is it looks like 2 years ago it peaked. Last year it came down a little bit. This year it's even more so down. So hopefully now going forward we should expect that number. I don't know if I should expect it or not, but what the trend looks like is that this time next year I should be down to $2,000, $1,900 again. And if I can do that and sell cars for $3,000, $3,500, man, we'll be rocking again. Right before the pandemic hit, there was like a 6 month span that we were doing 90 to 100 and like 100. We hit 110 cars on off season, like 1 month. Like we were averaging about 90 cars a month for a good 6 to 8 months right before it hit us. And then when it hit us, it's like sales got cut in half.
Well, I think at least in my humble opinion, that what those stats show is a trend and that things are trending in the right direction. And so assuming that there's nothing that goes crazy in this world to negatively impact it, that trend should continue into next year. Now, having said that, we know that everything can go to hell in a handbasket in a half a second. But hopefully it doesn't. And if that trend does continue, then it bodes well not only for you and your customers, but probably for others looking at pre-owned cars as well moving forward.
And I can tell we've got a question. I'll go to the chat. If you got any questions, I'll answer. We'll answer a couple of them before we get off here. But 222 ain't that's a great name, I guess. Is the repo business busier or slower? But I wanted to pull this up because there's another seasonality, a seasonal thing that happens in the car market, and there's a repo season. So we went through all this tax time. We had people that had down payments for cars, and then they don't think about the future, and they'll put the down payment on the car, the $995, the $29.95, whatever it is, at these buy here, pay here lots, and then they'll drive the car for about a month, and then they'll stop making their payments. So right after spring selling season, there's a repo season, and a lot of these buy here, pay here dealers right now are very busy picking up cars. So that adds a little bit more softness in the market around this time period because, you have a little bit more car. I mean, they're cars that no one wants. They're going to be just beat to crap. And even a car dealer like me that sells stuff that's $5,000 and under, we don't like to buy repos.
Yeah, you don't. But even you don't want those cars.
Right. But you'll still have consumers that have even less money, and they've spent all out, and if they can't make their car payments, then they're not going to be able to get into another car either. So that's there's a little bit more softness from the consumer side because of this summer repo season also.
Yeah, everything's seasonal. I mean, people stretch and then realize, oh, made a mistake, and yeah, it typically happens during the spring selling season, and it, we would see going into the summer where repos are going to peak again, and we're well on the way, I would think.
Yeah, we have Mark was asking, have you seen or heard of any sales slowing in May, or is this just a hunch? Because
Um,
for me, it's just a hunch, and I feel like that's what's happening at these new car dealers.
yeah, we've heard from some of our dealer partners that things aren't uh, going as well as they had been. Now, if you're a Toyota or a Lexus dealer, there is no slowdown because everything's pre-sold before it gets in anyway. But I think we're going to see Ford have a flat May. I think the industry will see a flat May. That's from some of the things that I've heard.
Now, since you guys work with a lot of buyers, are you able to track or even gauge the like buyer sentiment? Whether you're getting more customers, less customers, more calls, more inquiries, or anything? Are you tracking any of that kind of data?
Well, my son is a data nerd, and it's a data driven business. So I believe the answer to that question would be a resounding yes. They track all of that, and so if you were to say to me, are there as many people interested in the negotiation um, uh, piece that we have, or the concierge piece? The numbers are down because the number of people in the market are down. That's another reason why I suspect May sales will come back as flat. Our business is no different than any other business in automotive. It is reflective of people's sentiment towards spending large sums of money. And right now, consumer sentiment isn't as strong as it had been. Um, so yeah, we data wise, we know that there's a slowdown in sales.
All right,
Hate to break it to everybody.
Crystal ball time. Then let's project next 6 months. Let's look 6 months out. So we're going into fall. Where do you think new car prices are going to be, and then where do you think used car prices are going to be? If you can separate, because they're two different markets, completely different.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we're going to see new car sales hit that brick wall. So, and part of it is going to be tariff induced for the manufacturers that have pretty much said, we can eat some of the tariffs, but we can't afford to eat all of the tariffs, which is basically what Subaru has said. Because, I've seen comments, well, all they need to do is produce more cars in America. Well, that's not all you need to do, because 55% of the cars they sell, they build in Indiana. So only 45% of the cars, the minority of the cars, come from Japan. So what are they going to do? They're going to absorb some of that tariff, then they're going to spread it around the rest of the cars. And I think most of your manufacturers are going to be in that position, the same similar position, where they're going to eat some of it, and then they're going to spread some of it around the cars, and they're going to ultimately raise the prices. And then once they do that, they will continue to see a slowdown in sales that I think we're going to start seeing this month. And then the poop will hit the fan, and they'll have to make a decision come September, October. Okay, how do we spur sales again?
So what's 6 months? Is that October? Is that 6 months from now? Somebody
Well,
double check me in the comments.
6 months would be November. This is the
November.
5th month.
So
Yeah.
November rolls around, we get data. Do you think average transaction price of a new vehicle is higher or lower than it is right now?
I think, well, I think average transaction price for the few that sell will be closer to $50,000 than say $45,000. And
So you
right
think it'll
now,
be
the
higher?
average, if you look at automotive news, I think the average transaction pricing is 48 and change. I think it's
So
going to be
not a massive change, but you think
no,
a little up.
but enough to slow down the market further.
And I feel like I'm going to take the other side of that. I feel like average transaction prices, I think it's going to be close still, though. I don't think it's going to be a big whoosh down. It's not going to be $43,000, but I think it'll be a hair lower 6 months from now than it is right now.
I can't wait to find out.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I just think it's going to be interesting over the next 6 months to see how people react, because we've talked about it ad nauseum that things are just priced too high for the vast majority of people. And so at what point do the manufacturers listen to the customers and stop producing the high price stuff and start producing more of the lower price stuff and actually spend marketing dollars to make it cool to own the lower price stuff so that they can sell more of it and more people can get back in the market? At what point does that happen? And it could be after new car sales hit a brick wall, and then they go, oh, we better do something.
Yeah, and here's what worries me about the used car market, because the used car market and the new car market can kind of work inverse of each other. Because if we have new car sales that are really slow and new cars have to go down in price, like what I'm predicting, then that causes a lack of trade-ins because new car dealers aren't selling them. So if you have a lack of supply from all of us dealers that are still trying to buy at these auctions, but there are fewer cars, then that can keep the used car prices stubbornly high. And in a weird sense of things, if new car dealers just pretty much stop selling altogether, if they get just absolutely crushed, then it can make used car prices go up. So it's I hope that's not the case. I hope that the new car market rocks and we get tons of trade-ins, because that can push used car prices down. But the other thing too is if it just stays kind of okay, then I think used car prices will come down still in a big way. Just because I think the demand is just, no, everybody's broke. Nobody's got any money.
Yeah, and people that do have money are shying away from spending it.
Yeah,
they're not feeling comfortable enough to part with big sums of it because they're not sure what the future holds. And not that you can ever know what the future holds, but obviously there are times in our lifetimes where things just seem more stable for a longer period of time than what most folks might perceive at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, Ray, we did it, and I'm so bad at closing out these shows, so I'm gonna let you do it today.
Well, we did it in the sense that we killed 33 minutes. We appreciate everybody tuning in and hopefully enjoying and commenting on the show. And if you like it, well, subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Damn it, we would appreciate that. I don't want to say that we work hard at doing this, but damn it, we work
so hard.
So hard.
We work so hard.
Yes.
All right. See, I'm even. Why didn't I just hit the button? Why didn't I just hit the button after you said that?
Just say thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate you out there watching this.
Now
There's nobody watching this. Just hit the button.
Hit the end button. Just